I will admit that I did not want the Shanling M1s to be good, or at least I did not want it to be significantly better than the Shanling M0 Pro I recently bought and reviewed. I was perfectly happy with the M1 Pro, or almost perfectly happy. The fact that the artist names and album titles do not scroll in the My Music listing does make it harder than it needs to be to locate a particular album or song, and that became increasingly annoying as I added more music to the device. And the battery life is not all I could want. Aside from that, the M1 Pro is, as far as I am concerned, an almost perfect digital audio player, especially at its tiny size. And the fact that I can use it as a DAC to play streaming Apple lossless music from my iPhone or iPad makes it even better. I certainly did not need another digital audio player. But once I saw the announcement on Shangling's Facebook page that they'd made a deal with Ashida to distribute the M1s, previously only available in China and maybe Japan, to the rest of the world, including the US, I had to wonder. Twice the size, and not quite twice the price. The M0 Pro is $130 plus $15 for the balanced adapter, which you really need to get the most out of it. So $145. And the M1s is $230 with the balanced 4.4 outlet built in. So not quite $100 more. Would it be worth it? I could still use the M1 Pro as a DAC with my iPad Pro for Apple Music. Niggling little doubt. I held off for several weeks while traveling to India and back, enjoying the M1 Pro on my flights to and from. But when I got back home, I couldn't resist. I ordered the M1s. It came pretty quickly, and it is better. It's not night and day different, but enough better so that I'm going to have to keep it. How can this be? They have basically the same operating system. There is maybe a faster processor in the M1s, and of course a screen twice the size. The artist names and album titles scroll in the list, though they don't really need to, most of the time with a larger screen. Scrolling is actually smoother and faster on the M0 Pro, and it's much easier to return to the top-level menu, but the M1s has physical playback buttons. The M1s also allows you to add multiple songs to a playlist at the same time, which you couldn't do on the M0 Pro, and that makes the whole playlist thing a lot more useful on the M1s. Still, feature for feature, they're pretty much the same. Basically the same menu system, though the M1s adds a high-res category to the music listings along with album, artist, genre, and composer. And they have the same Bluetooth send and receive features and codecs, the same dual-purpose DAC and DAP, same single-ended and balanced output with the balanced output adapter on the M1 Pro. The M1s does have Wi-Fi, absent on the M0 Pro, which enables Wi-Fi transfer of titles, Wi-Fi firmware updates, and most importantly, Apple's AirPlay. The M1s's implementation of AirPlay works flawlessly with Apple devices to stream AAC 48K music, so almost lossless, directly from your phone, laptop, or tablet to the M1s and any connected IEMs or headphones. There's also a rumor that streaming services might be added to the M1s in a future firmware update, but since that's unlikely to be Apple Music, I'm not sure I care. By the way, you can set the M1s to have the screen on the top or on the bottom. It turns over automatically when you set it, so everything looks right and works right. As you can see, I prefer it with the screen on the top, but that's not how it comes from the factory. You have to go into the settings and turn it around. The M1s has a single DAC chip, as opposed to the dual DACs in the M0 Pro, though all three are Sabre chips. The M1s is more of a desktop chip, and the ones in the M0 Pro are definitely designed for mobile devices. The M1s has separate discrete power amps for each channel, and it has just slightly more power at the balanced jack, so pretty much totally a different audio architecture. Still, I did not expect it to make that much difference, certainly not the difference it actually makes. The things you notice, or I noticed at any rate, are note weight, detail, and soundstage. while the M0 Pro is excellent, solid, musical, satisfying, and accurate. The M1s takes all that to the next level. Every note, from sub-bass to the highest treble, just has more authority, seems to stand out more effortlessly from the silence, and the level of detail, texture, and tone is just a step beyond. The soundscape in particular seems to have an extra dimension. It expands further to both sides, not laterally, but spherically, and has a depth that is just not there. Same music, same IEMs on the M0 Pro. The M1s gives you the impression of an enveloping, totally three-dimensional soundstage, almost holographic, a space that surrounds your head in the same way a room would, or even an auditorium on classical or stage music, richly detailed, subtly textured. While the M0 Pro sounds just fine without comparison, when compared to the M1s, even on exactly the same music with the same IEMs, the M0 Pro sounds just a bit flat, a bit constrained, almost, dare I say, two-dimensional. This added space is readily apparent on well-recorded orchestral works, like the new Symphonic Touch by Benny Andersson from the London Philharmonic, or anything from Al Marconi. Again, not a huge difference, but one I can hear. Once heard, I cannot unhear it. And that is not what I wanted to hear. I messed around with the digital filters on both. There are only 2 choices on the M0 Pro, and like 7 on the M1s. And it is possible to make the M1s sound pretty much exactly like the M0 Pro. But with the filters set to the same default setting on both players, there's no doubt that the M1s sounds just a little bit better. There is, as I said, a significant size difference between the 2 Shanling players. The M1s is small, while the M0 Pro is, by comparison, tiny. But it turns out, at least for me, small may be small enough. The extra screen real estate and the physical buttons make a difference, and it has a bigger battery, longer battery life, and is ultimately just easier all around to use. The only other comparison worth making is with the very similar and similarly priced Hippie Pro Saber 2022. Personally, the M1s's true 4.4 balanced output makes all the difference in my world. The M1s is not perfect. There are still some bugs in the OS. It will not hold time format, no matter how many times I set it. And occasionally, after adding music, I have to pull the card out and put it back in and rescan, or it loses track of some songs. List scrolling could be smoother, and there really should be a way to jump back to the main menu without popping back through all the different steps it took to get you there. The M1s also seems super sensitive to the cable used to connect it to your laptop, phone, or tablet, at least on Apple devices. Some cables that work fine on the M0 Pro or on another DAC I have do not work at all on the M1s. I suspect the USB host chip is either just not up to the task or, more likely, isn't properly configured yet. Little stuff. So, if you're in the market for a small, portable, great-sounding DAC, you now have 2 choices from Shanling. If size matters and you want the smallest player with great sound and the ability to double as a DAC on your desktop, or as a send-receive Bluetooth device, then the M0 Pro is still for you. If you want a bit more ease of use, all the other features, plus Wi-Fi and AirPlay, and even better sound, and are willing to spend a bit more and carry a slightly bigger, but still very compact player, then I can highly recommend the M1s. The price difference is significant and may be a factor for some, but both are still very reasonably priced for the value you get. Unfortunately, I found that out the hard way by buying one of each. I do not need 2 DAPs. But then, that's this whole hi-fi, sci-fi thing in a nutshell. Always something new, and sometimes something better. And the M1s is, in my opinion, better.